Observer Kelthrick stood before the massive viewing screen, his 4 eyes tracking the slow movement of planets in the distant solar system. He had watched this star system for 40 years now, almost his entire adult life. The third planet from its yellow sun held a species called humans, and they fascinated him in ways he could not fully explain to his superiors. The observation post hung in the darkness of space, invisible to the primitive sensors the humans used. It was a standard station, nothing special, one of thousands maintained by the Confederation of Advanced Species. The Cass had been watching younger civilizations for millennia, waiting for them to mature enough for contact. Most species took 5,000 years to reach the stars. Humans were moving much faster. Kelthrick's datapad chirped softly. More readings from the human homeworld. Energy signatures showing increased industrial output. More ships leaving their planet, heading to their moon, to the red planet they called Mars, to the moons of their giant outer planets. In just 200 years of observation, humans had gone from crude flying machines to establishing bases throughout their solar system. It was remarkable. It was also worrying. They are still decades away from faster-than-light travel, his assistant Norval said, reading over his shoulder. Norval was young, barely 10 years into his service. He did not understand patience yet. Why do you spend so much time on them? Because they surprise me, Kelthrick replied. He zoomed the display to show Earth's orbital space. Dozens of structures floated there now, some spinning to create artificial gravity, others stationary with solar panels spread like wings. Look at how quickly they build. Look at how they spread. Norval clicked his mandibles in dismissal. They fight among themselves constantly. Their transmissions show wars, conflicts, divisions. They will likely destroy themselves before they ever reach for the stars beyond their system. Kelthrick had heard this opinion before. It was the official assessment of the Cass Council. Humans were violent, fractious, unlikely to survive their own technological adolescence. But Kelthrick had studied them long enough to see something else. Yes, they fought, but they also cooperated on massive scales. They built stations in space where different human nations worked side by side. They sent probes to study their own sun, to map distant planets, to search for life beyond their world. They were searching for him, for anyone. They shouted into the void with radio waves and mathematical proofs, hoping someone would answer. The Cass policy was clear: no contact until a species developed FTL technology on their own. It was a test. Only species that could break the light barrier themselves were considered mature enough for galactic society. The console beeped urgently. Kelthrick's attention snapped to the alert. Energy readings from the human system had just spiked. Not from Earth, but from one of their outer colonies. He pulled up the data stream, his heart's beating faster. The signature was unmistakable. It was a spatial distortion, the kind that preceded faster-than-light travel. Impossible, Norval whispered. They do not have the technology. Our scouts confirmed this just 3 months ago. Kelthrick's fingers flew across the controls. The readings were clear. Something in the human system was bending space itself. The energy levels were crude, unstable, but definitely there. Get me a direct feed. I need to see this. The screen shifted to show a human vessel, larger than their usual ships, positioned near one of their outer planets. Strange structures extended from its hull, glowing with barely contained power. As they watched, space around the ship began to shimmer. Then it vanished. Not destroyed, not exploded, simply gone faster than light could travel. Norval made a choking sound. Kelthrick sat frozen, unable to process what he had just witnessed.
Humans had achieved FTL travel.
Decades, perhaps a century before the Cass had predicted. They had done it quietly, without the usual subspace distortions that young civilizations created when they first cracked the barrier. This was refined, controlled. We must inform the Council immediately, Norval said, reaching for the communications panel. Kelthrick stopped him with a raised hand. Wait, where did the ship go? They pulled up the long-range sensors scanning nearby space. Nothing. The ship had not appeared anywhere within detection range. That meant it had traveled far, much farther than a first FTL test should have allowed. Humans were not stumbling into FTL technology. They had mastered it already. How long? Kelthrick asked himself. How long have they been capable of this? The answer came 3 hours later. Another observation post, this one positioned near a Cass research station at the edge of explored space, sent a distress signal. The message was brief and confused. Unknown vessels approaching. Not hostile, but not responding to hails. Then silence. Kelthrick pulled up the location. It was 200 light-years from Earth, in a region humans should not have been able to reach for decades even with basic FTL. Yet something was there. Something that had made a KS station go dark. He opened a channel to the Confederation Council on the homeworld, knowing this message would take weeks to arrive even through their advanced relays. This is Observer Kelthrick, Station 793. I am reporting a critical development regarding species human of planet Earth. They have achieved FTL capability ahead of all projections. They have also expanded far beyond their home system. I believe they have been listening to our communications. I believe they have been preparing. Request immediate guidance on contact protocols. He closed the channel and stared at the screen showing Earth. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from this distance, swirled with white clouds, dotted with lights on its dark side where millions of humans lived their lives. They seemed so fragile from here, so young. But somewhere out there in the darkness, human ships were moving. They had been moving for months, perhaps years, while the CAS watched and assumed and underestimated. Kelthrick felt something he had not experienced in decades of observation work: uncertainty. The galaxy was about to change, and nobody was ready for it. On the screen, another human ship launched from Earth's orbit, its engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the outer system. Toward the stars beyond, toward a future that was arriving much faster than anyone had predicted. The CAS rescue flotilla dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the coordinates of Research Station Epsilon 12. 20 warships, a respectable force for what should have been a simple rescue operation. Fleet Commander Thraxus, a veteran of the border wars 60 years ago, stood on his bridge and studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The station was intact. All lights functioning, life support active. No signs of damage or attack. But there were ships docked at the station, and they were definitely not Confederation vessels. Scan those ships, Thraxus ordered. His crew worked quickly, their instruments sweeping over the unknown vessels. The ships were smaller than KS military craft, angular where Confederation ships were curved, covered in armor plating that looked primitive but effective. Chemical propulsion, fusion reactors, and something else. Something that read like FTL drives, but the signature was all wrong. Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the station, his communications officer announced. It is not from our people. Put it through. The view screen flickered and resolved into an image that made every crew member on the bridge freeze. A human stood there wearing a dark uniform with symbols and insignia that meant nothing to Thraxus. The human was female, her hair pulled back severely, her face showing neither fear nor aggression. Just calm professionalism. I am Commander Sarah Voss of the Terran Exploration Fleet, the human said in perfect Confederation common language. Your research station was abandoned when we arrived 3 weeks ago. Your crew evacuated for reasons we have not been able to determine. We have secured the station and preserved all equipment and data. We left your people's belongings untouched. We are prepared to return everything to Confederation authority. Thraxus felt his combat instincts screaming at him. Humans should not be here. They should not speak Confederation language. They should not have FTL drives. How did you get here? He demanded. Your species does not have the technology for faster-than-light travel. Commander Voss smiled slightly. It was not a warm expression. You have been broadcasting your communications across half the galaxy for 200 years. We listened. We learned. We built. Is that not what intelligent species do? You stole our technology, Thraxus said, his voice hard with accusation. We reverse-engineered concepts from transmissions you sent into open space, Voss replied. If you did not want others to learn, perhaps you should have used encryption. We followed the same path you did. We discovered the mathematics of folding space. We built engines based on our own understanding of physics. Nothing was stolen. Thraxus felt control of the situation slipping away. This was supposed to be simple. Find the lost station, rescue the crew, investigate what happened. Instead, he was facing a species that should not exist as a spacefaring power. Speaking to a commander who showed no deference to the Confederation's superiority. You will evacuate that station immediately, Thraxus said. You will return to your home system. The Confederation will establish formal contact with your species when we determine you are ready. Until then, You are violating established space law. We do not recognize laws we had no part in creating, Voss said calmly. We have been exploring space beyond our system for 18 months now. We have established colonies on 14 worlds. We have observed your confederation from a distance. We wish to open formal diplomatic relations as equals. The bridge fell silent. Equals. This primitive species, barely off their home world by Confederation reckoning, wanted to be treated as equals. Thraxus felt anger rising in his chest. You are children playing with technology you barely understand. Return to your system now, or we will be forced to escort you. Commander Voss's expression did not change. I had hoped this would go differently. But we prepared for multiple scenarios. She looked past the camera at someone off-screen. Activate defensive measures. Alarms screamed across Thraxus's bridge. Half his ship suddenly went dark. Not destroyed, but completely powered down. Weapons offline. Engines offline. Life support still functioning, but everything else dead. His crew shouted reports, their voices panicked and confused. What did you do? Thraxus roared at the screen. Demonstrated that you are not as technologically superior as you believe, Voss said. Her voice remained calm, almost gentle. We have been studying your ships for months. Your shielding frequencies are predictable. Your computer systems use protocols we cracked in the first week. We just sent a pulse that overloaded your power regulators. No permanent damage. Your ships will reboot in approximately 10 minutes. Thraxus stared at her, unable to speak. 10 ships. Half his fleet disabled in seconds without a single shot fired. It was impossible. It was humiliating. We do not want war, Commander Voss continued. We want recognition. We want a seat at the table of galactic civilization. We have earned that right by reaching the stars, by surviving our own history, by building a civilization that spans multiple star systems. You watched us for 200 years without revealing yourselves. You studied us like laboratory specimens. Did you think we would not eventually become aware? Did you think we would not prepare? The Confederation has protocols for first contact, Thraxus said, fighting to keep his voice steady. There are reasons for our methods. Young species are volatile, dangerous. You must prove you are ready. We are ready, Voss said. But we will not beg for acceptance. We offer partnership. We offer our knowledge, our perspectives, our strengths. In return, we ask for respect and recognition. That is our proposal. Thraxus felt the weight of his next words. He could accept their offer, open contact, and face questions from the Council about his decision. Or he could refuse, escalate the situation, and risk a conflict with a species that had just proven they could disable his ships with ease. The choice seemed simple, but pride and protocol warred within him. I must consult with the Confederation Council, he said finally. This decision is beyond my authority. We understand, Voss replied. We will wait at this station for your response. We have supplies for 3 months. We hope your answer will come sooner. And Commander Thraxus, we are returning control of your ships now. Consider it a gesture of good faith. The screen went dark. Moments later, Thraxus's disabled ships began powering back up, their systems rebooting exactly as Voss had promised. The crew worked frantically to run diagnostics, to understand what had happened, to prepare for another possible attack. Thraxus stood in the center of his bridge, feeling older than his years. He had fought in wars. He had seen species rise and fall, but he had never felt quite like this. Humans had just changed everything, and the Confederation had no idea what was coming. He opened a priority channel to the Council homeworld. The message would take days to arrive. Their response would take days to return. In that time, anything could happen. Humans were already here, already spreading, already challenging the established order. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth had not asked permission to join them. Humanity had decided to claim their place among the stars, and they had prepared for every possible response. Thraxus looked at the human ships docked at the station through his viewscreen. Small, angular, covered in weapons that his scanners showed were far more advanced than their appearance suggested. He wondered how many more ships humans had. How many more colonies? How many more surprises? He had a terrible feeling they were about to find out. 3 months passed while the Confederation Council debated and argued and finally decided. They chose to demonstrate power. They chose to remind humanity of their place in the galactic order. They assembled the Grand Armada, 500 ships representing 12 different species. the largest military force gathered in 2 generations. They would sail to human space and deliver an ultimatum: submit to Confederation authority or face consequences. Observer Kelthrick watched the preparations with growing dread. He had submitted 17 reports warning that humans should not be underestimated. He had shown data about human expansion, human technology, human strategic thinking. The Council had read his reports and dismissed them. They saw only a young species that needed to be controlled before they became dangerous. They are making a mistake, Kelthrick said to his assistant Norval as they watched the Armada form up in orbit of the Council homeworld. The Armada will not need to fire a single shot, Norval replied confidently. When humans see our strength, they will understand. They will accept our terms. This is how it has always been with younger species. But Kelthrick had been monitoring human transmissions. He had tracked their ship movements, their colony expansion, their military buildup. The official Confederation intelligence said humans controlled 12 star systems. Kelthrick's private calculations suggested the real number was much higher. Humans did not broadcast their colony locations. They did not advertise their strength. They had learned from watching the Confederation how to keep secrets. The Grand Armada jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading for the primary human colony world designated New Terra, not Earth itself. The Council had decided that threatening Earth would be too provocative. They would strike at a colony world, demonstrate their superiority, and force human leadership to negotiate from a position of weakness. Kelthrick secured permission to travel with the fleet. He told the Council he wanted to serve as a cultural advisor for First Contact. The truth was he wanted to witness what happened next. He had spent 40 years studying humans. He felt he owed them the courtesy of seeing how this ended. The Armada dropped out of FTL at the edge of the New Terra system. The planet hung in space ahead of them, a blue-green world similar to Earth with 3 moons and a robust industrial infrastructure visible even at this distance. Orbital stations, satellite networks, ships moving between the planet and its moons. It looked like a thriving colony, but nothing that could challenge 500 warships. Matriarch Silene, the Council's military commander, stood on the bridge of the flagship and gazed at New Terra with satisfaction. Open a channel to the planet. Inform them that the Confederation has arrived to discuss terms of humanity's integration into galactic society. The communications officer worked her console, then frowned. Matriarch, we are receiving a transmission. It is from Commander Voss. The human from the research station incident? Silene asked. Yes, Matriarch. She is offering to meet for negotiations. She says she has been expecting us. Expecting them. Kelthrick felt cold certainty settle in his chest. Humans had known this was coming. They had prepared. Commander Voss appeared on the view screen, standing in what looked like a military command center. Behind her, Kelthrick could see displays showing orbital mechanics, fleet positions, tactical readouts. She looked tired but alert, like someone who had not slept properly in days. Matriarch Silene, Voss said respectfully, we received word of your Armada's assembly 3 weeks ago. Our scouts reported your departure from your home world. We tracked your approach vector. We have been preparing for this meeting. You have scouts watching our homeworld? Silene asked, her voice dangerous. You have watched Earth for 200 years, Voss replied. Did you think we would not return the courtesy? We have learned much about the Confederation, about your strengths, about your weaknesses, about your belief that military force will make us submit. We come offering you a place in galactic civilization, Silene said. But that place must be earned through humility and acceptance of our authority. You are children. You need guidance. We offer you an alternative, Voss said. Join us instead. The Terran Alliance welcomes all species as equals. We share technology, resources, and governance. We believe in partnership, not domination. That offer extends to every ship in your fleet. Any who wish to join us will be welcomed. Any who wish to remain with the Confederation are free to leave. The bridge fell silent. The audacity of the offer was staggering. Humans, outnumbered and facing the might of the Confederation's military, were inviting their enemies to defect. Matriarch Silene laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. You are surrounded by 500 warships. You have no leverage. You will surrender now, or we will disable your orbital infrastructure and force compliance. We will not surrender, Voss said quietly. And you are not surrounding us. You have walked into a trap. Kelthrick's workstation exploded with alerts. The fleet's long-range sensors had been focused on New Terra, monitoring the planet and its immediate orbital space. Now they expanded their scan range and Kelthric felt his blood turn to ice. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands of them, appearing from behind moons, from orbital positions masked by the planet's bulk, from stealth positions in the asteroid belt. They had been there all along, waiting, hidden by technology that made them invisible to Confederation sensors. Now they revealed themselves and the tactical display turned red with contact markers. 1,200 vessels, the tactical officer reported, her voice shaking. All armed, all moving to surround our position. We are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Matriarch Celine stared at the display, her face frozen in shock. Around the bridge, crew members sat paralyzed, unable to process what they were seeing. The humans did not have 12 colonies. They had dozens, maybe hundreds, and every single one was a military shipyard, churning out vessels designed for war. Commander Voss's voice cut through the stunned silence. We did not seek this confrontation. We wanted peace. We wanted partnership. You brought 500 ships to threaten our home. You brought war to our doorstep thinking we would cower. You forgot something important about humanity. She leaned toward the camera, her eyes hard. You watched us for 200 years. You saw our wars, our violence, our conflicts. Did you think that made us weak? Did you think we would turn that capacity for violence only on each other? We are survivors. We are fighters. And we have been preparing for this day since the moment we realized we were not alone in the universe. The human fleet moved into formation around the Confederation Armada, not attacking, not yet, but making their position clear. Every Confederation ship had multiple human vessels targeting it. The tactical advantage was overwhelming. You studied us like animals in a cage, Voss continued. You learned about our biology, our culture, our history, but you learned nothing about our spirit. We clawed our way up from caves. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed us. We split the atom and touched the stars through sheer determination. We do not kneel. We do not submit. We stand as equals or we stand alone. Kelthric found himself nodding. This was what he had tried to tell the Council. Humans were not like other species. They did not develop technology slowly over millennia. They exploded outward in bursts of desperate innovation. They turned every challenge into a lesson. Every threat into motivation to grow stronger. What do you want? Matriarch Celine asked. The arrogance had drained from her voice. What we have always wanted, Voss replied. Recognition, respect, a seat at the table. We will not attack unless you force us to. But we will not retreat. We will not surrender. This is our space now. These worlds are our homes. We invite you to leave peacefully. Return to your council. Tell them that humanity has claimed its place among the stars. Tell them we seek friendship but will accept isolation. The choice is theirs. The bridge was silent except for the quiet hum of instruments. Kelthric watched Matriarch Celine struggle with the decision. Pride demanded she attack, demonstrate Confederation superiority. Wisdom demanded she recognize the situation had changed. 500 ships against 1,200 in enemy territory, surrounded and outmaneuvered. We will withdraw, Celine said finally, the words bitter in her mouth. But this is not over. The Council will respond. You have made enemies today. We made enemies the day we reached for the stars, Voss replied. We are used to being underestimated. We are used to fighting for our survival. If the Confederation wants war, we will give you war. But we will also give you every chance for peace. The choice has always been yours. The screen went dark. Matriarch Celine stood motionless for a long moment, then turned to her fleet commander. Order all ships to jump to Rally Point Theta. We are leaving. As the Armada prepared to retreat, Kelthric stared at the human fleet surrounding them. Small ships built for speed and maneuverability, covered in weapons and armor that looked crude but effective. Behind them, New Terra hung in space, a world full of millions of humans who had just stood against the galaxy and refused to blink. The Confederation had come to force compliance. Instead, they were fleeing with their pride shattered. Humanity had won without firing a shot, and somewhere in the depths of human space, Kelthric knew there were more ships building, more colonies expanding, more preparation for whatever came next. The galaxy had just learned to fear humanity, but it had not yet learned to respect them. That lesson was still to come. The Confederation fleet did not make it home intact. 3 days after withdrawing from New Terra, a faction of hardliners led by Admiral Kraith broke formation and refused to retreat. 200 ships representing the most militant species in the Confederation turned back toward human space. They would not accept humiliation. They would not accept defeat without firing a single shot. They would teach humanity what happened to species that challenged the established order. Observer Kelthrick was still aboard the flagship when the mutiny happened. He watched helplessly as Admiral Kraith's forces split off and jumped back toward New Terra. Matriarch Selene tried to stop them, broadcasting orders and threats, but Kraith ignored her. The hardliners believed the Confederation had shown weakness. They would demonstrate true strength. "They are going to start a war," Kelthrick said quietly to Norval. "Perhaps that is what is needed," Norval replied. He had lost his earlier confidence, but defiance remained in his voice. "Humanity cannot be allowed to challenge us without consequences. Others will see their example and rebel. The Confederation will collapse if we show weakness." Kelthrick shook his head. "The Confederation is collapsing because we refuse to change. We have ruled unchallenged for so long we forgot how to adapt. Humanity is teaching us that lesson, but we are too proud to learn." He requested an immediate transfer to a scout ship and authorization to monitor the situation developing at New Terra. Matriarch Selene granted it. Perhaps grateful to have someone who understood humans watching what happened next, Kelthrick departed within the hour, his small vessel jumping ahead of Kraith's fleet, racing to see what humanity would do when actually attacked. The human response was already in motion when Kelthrick arrived. Their fleet had not dispersed after the Confederation's retreat. Commander Voss had kept them on alert, maintained formation, kept weapons ready. She had predicted this exact scenario. Humans had learned from their own history that peace treaties meant nothing if not backed by strength. Kelthrick positioned his scout ship at a safe distance and observed. Kraith's fleet dropped out of FTL in attack formation, weapons armed, shields at maximum. They outnumbered the human defenders at New Terra by a significant margin. 200 Confederation warships, the newest and most powerful vessels in the fleet, against perhaps 300 human ships that had remained at the colony world. Admiral Kraith broadcast on all frequencies. "Humanity, you have one final chance to surrender. Submit to Confederation authority, or we will reduce your colony to ash. This is your only warning." Commander Voss's response was immediate. "All ships attack Pattern Omega. Show them why we don't surrender." The human fleet moved like a single organism, ships breaking into small groups, each group targeting a single Confederation vessel. They did not engage in the traditional battle lines that Confederation military doctrine favored. Instead, they swarmed like predators from Earth's oceans, coordinating attacks with precision that spoke of extensive training. The first Confederation ship to fall was Admiral Kraith's own flagship. 6 human vessels converged on it simultaneously, hitting it from multiple vectors with kinetic weapons that punched through shields like they were not there. The flagship's main reactor went critical and the ship broke apart, taking Kraith and his entire command staff with it. The battle dissolved into chaos. Confederation ships tried to maintain formation, but human vessels darted between them, targeting engine sections, weapon arrays, command bridges. They fought with a ferocity that shocked Kelthrick. This was not the clinical warfare of the Confederation, where battles were fought at long range with energy weapons. This was visceral, brutal, personal. A human ship took critical damage and began to break apart. Instead of evacuating, the crew aimed their dying vessel at a Confederation cruiser and rammed it at full speed. The impact destroyed both ships in a flash of nuclear fire. Kelthrick watched in horror as another damaged human vessel did the same thing minutes later. They were willing to die to take enemies with them, but they were also winning. Confederation ships had superior armor and weapons, but they were unprepared for human tactics. The humans had studied Confederation military doctrine during their 200 years of observation. They knew how the enemy would fight. They had designed their entire military strategy around countering it. Human ships deployed cyber weapons that crashed Confederation targeting systems. They used kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds that could not be intercepted. They targeted command ships first, creating confusion in the enemy ranks. They fought like they had been doing this for centuries, even though their species had only reached the stars a few years ago. Kelthrick watched one human captain lead a boarding action against a disabled Confederation dreadnought. The footage came from internal security cameras, showing humans in powered armor cutting through the ship's bulkheads, moving with terrible efficiency. They fought hand-to-hand when necessary, their soldiers showing a capacity for violence that made even hardened Confederation warriors retreat. But then something happened that Kelthric would never forget. A Confederation escape pod launched from the dreadnought, damaged and spinning out of control. The humans could have ignored it, could have let it crash into nearby debris. Instead, a human vessel changed course and caught the pod with a tractor beam, stabilizing it and guiding it to safety. "They are saving our people," Norval whispered over the communication channel. He was watching the same feeds from the remnant of Matriarch Silene's fleet. Even while fighting, they are rescuing survivors. It was true. Throughout the battle, even as humans ruthlessly destroyed Confederation ships, they were also recovering escape pods and transmitting coordinates of survivors to both sides. They killed without mercy when faced with enemies who would not surrender, but they showed compassion to those who could no longer fight. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 147 Confederation ships had been destroyed or disabled. 39 managed to retreat back to friendly space. The human fleet had lost 91 vessels, nearly a third of their force, but they held the field. Commander Voss broadcast a message to all surviving Confederation vessels. "We did not want this. We offered peace. Admiral Kraith chose war. We will accept the surrender of any ship that wishes to stand down. We will provide medical care and repatriation of prisoners. Or you can continue fighting and die here. Choose now." 16 Confederation ships surrendered. The rest fled. Kelthric watched them go. Watched the human fleet begin the grim work of search and rescue, pulling survivors from wreckage and providing aid without regard for species or allegiance. They had just won a brutal battle, yet they showed honor to the defeated. "This is what you tried to warn us about," Norval said quietly. "They are not like other species." "No," Kelthric agreed. "They understand that today's enemy might be tomorrow's ally. They fight with absolute conviction but without hatred. They will kill to defend their homes but show mercy when the battle ends. This is how they survived their own violent history. They learned to make peace after war." He watched Commander Voss coordinate the recovery effort, her face drawn with exhaustion and grief. She had lost thousands of her people in the battle. Yet her voice remained steady as she ordered medical teams to treat Confederation wounded with the same priority as human casualties. Kelthric opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Commander Voss, this is Observer Kelthric of the Confederation. I have watched your species for 40 years. I tried to warn my superiors about underestimating you. They did not listen. I wish to speak with you if you will allow it." There was a pause, then Voss's face appeared on his screen. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much violence in too short a time. "Observer Kelthric, I read your reports. We intercepted Confederation communications, including your warnings about us. You were one of the few who understood. What do you want?" "To help," Kelthric said simply. "This war should not continue. Both sides have now proven their strength. Both have shown their determination. Perhaps someone who understands both cultures can help find a path to peace." Voss studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Come to New Terra, we will talk. But understand this, Observer. We will not surrender. We will not submit. If the Confederation wants peace, it will be as equals. If they want war, we will fight until one side or the other can no longer continue. Those are the only options." "I understand," Kelthric said. And he did. Humanity had made their position clear. The galaxy could accept them as partners or face them as enemies. There was no middle ground. The Confederation had created this situation by treating humans as inferiors. Now they would pay the price for that arrogance. Kelthric set course for New Terra, hoping he could help prevent total war. Behind him, the wreckage of the battle drifted in space, a graveyard of ships and dreams of easy domination. The Confederation had learned humanity could fight. Now it remained to be seen if they could learn to coexist with a species that refused to kneel. The aftermath of the battle brought an uneasy calm to New Terra. Hundreds of ships from both sides worked side by side in the recovery effort, pulling survivors from wreckage, treating wounded and clearing orbital debris. It was surreal to see human and Confederation crews cooperating after trying to kill each other hours before. Yet Commander Voss had made her orders clear. Every life mattered now that the shooting had stopped. Observer Kelthric landed on New Terra's surface at the main colony settlement. It was his first time setting foot on a human world, and he was struck by how similar it felt to other colonies he had visited. Prefabricated structures arranged in logical patterns, parks and green spaces to provide psychological comfort, monuments celebrating the colonists' achievements. Humanity built homes, not just bases. They made places they could love and defend. Commander Voss met him at the landing pad. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, uniform rumpled from days without rest, but she stood straight and offered her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Kelthrick took it carefully, aware of human strength even in a peaceful gesture. "Thank you for coming," Voss said as they walked toward the Colonial Administration building. "I know this puts you in a difficult position with your own people." "My people need to hear truth even if they don't want to," Kelthrick replied. "This conflict serves no one. We must find a way forward." They were halfway to the building when alarms began screaming. Kelthrick felt Voss tense beside him, her hand dropping to the weapon at her hip. All around them, human soldiers ran to defensive positions with practiced efficiency. Something was very wrong. A young officer ran up to Voss, her face pale. "Commander, we have a situation." Long-range sensors detected a massive spatial distortion. "Something is emerging from FTL at the edge of the system." "Confederation reinforcements?" Voss asked, already moving toward the command center. "No, ma'am. The energy signature is wrong. This is something else. Something much bigger." They reached the command center to find controlled chaos. Displays showed a vessel emerging from faster-than-light travel, and Kelthrick felt his blood run cold when he saw the readings. He knew what this was. Every child in Confederation space learned about these weapons in history lessons. Warnings about the Dark Age before the current peace. "That's a doomsday device," Kelthrick said. "We outlawed them 600 years ago. Someone kept one operational in secret." The vessel on the screen was enormous, more a mobile platform than a ship, and at its heart was a weapon capable of cracking a planet's crust, boiling its oceans, rendering it uninhabitable for millennia. Someone in the Confederation had decided that if they could not control humanity, they would destroy humanity's birth world as a warning. "Target?" Voss asked, her voice deadly calm despite the horror of the situation. "Calculating now," a technician replied. "Course projection indicates Earth. They are heading for Earth." The room fell silent. Every human present understood what that meant. Earth was the cradle of their civilization, home to 10 billion people, the cultural and emotional center of human space. Destroying it would wound humanity in ways that went beyond simple casualties. "How long until it reaches firing range?" Voss asked. 14 hours at current speed, the technician replied. "Once it begins charging the main weapon, we will have approximately 30 minutes before it fires." Voss turned to her staff. "Get me every ship we can muster. I don't care if they are damaged, if they are running on emergency power, if they can barely fly. Anything that can fight needs to be moving toward Earth within the hour." "Commander, our fleet is scattered," one officer protested. "Most ships are engaged in rescue operations. We cannot possibly assemble enough force to stop that thing in time." "Then we will die trying," Voss said. "Send the recall order. All ships, maximum speed to Earth. This is what we prepared for. This is why we built our fleet. To defend our home." Kelthrick watched the humans mobilize with incredible speed. Within 20 minutes, every human vessel capable of flight was breaking orbit and heading toward Earth at maximum speed. Damaged ships with hull breaches and failing systems, support vessels never designed for combat. Even civilian craft with improvised weapons bolted to their hulls. 300 ships racing to defend their homeworld. It would not be enough. Kelthrick had seen the specifications of doomsday devices in historical archives. They were built to withstand entire fleets. The weapon itself was protected by shielding so powerful that conventional weapons could barely scratch it. The humans were sailing toward certain death. "I must contact my government," Kelthrick said. "They need to know about this. They need to help stop it." "Your government is probably who sent it," Voss replied bitterly. "But yes, try. We will accept help from anyone at this point." Kelthrick transmitted an emergency signal to Confederation space, broadcasting everything they knew about the doomsday device. He included a personal plea to Matriarch Silene, begging her to intervene to send ships to stop this madness before it was too late. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He downloaded classified Confederation files on the doomsday device's design and gave them to Voss. "This is treason," he said quietly. "But perhaps your engineers can find a weakness. Some vulnerability we can exploit. Boss looked at him with something like respect. Why are you doing this? We are not your people. Because it is right, Kelthric replied. Because destroying a planet full of civilians is not justice or strength. It is genocide. I became an observer to help species understand each other. I will not stand by while millions die due to pride and fear. The next hours were a desperate race. The human fleet pushed their engines beyond safety limits, burning through fuel reserves, accepting damage to shave minutes off their travel time. Behind them, the Confederation remnant fleet had received Kelthric's message. Matriarch Selene made a decision that would define her legacy. She ordered every Confederation ship to join the humans in defending Earth. This was not authorized by the Council, she broadcast to all vessels. This is murder. We are not murderers. Any ship that wishes to help defend Earth has my permission to do so. This ends now. 160 Confederation vessels changed course and headed for Earth. Some were damaged from the earlier battle, some were already low on supplies, but they came anyway. The galaxy watched as two fleets that had been enemies hours ago now raced together to stop a common threat. They arrived at Earth with 2 hours to spare. The Doomsday device hung in space, its charging sequence already begun. Energy readings showed the weapon building power, preparing to unleash devastation on the blue-green world below. 460 ships, human and Confederation, formed up between the weapon platform and Earth. Commander Voss stood on her bridge, looking at the tactical display showing impossible odds. Then she opened a channel to all ships, both human and alien. This is Commander Sarah Voss. Below us is Earth, birthplace of humanity, home to billions of innocent lives. That weapon will not fire while we live. Every species here today has chosen to stand for something greater than themselves. For the right of civilizations to exist, for the principle that might does not make right. Whatever happens in the next hours, know that you fought for something worth dying for. All ships attack. The combined fleet opened fire. Missiles and energy beams and kinetic projectiles hammered against the Doomsday device's shields. The platform returned fire with defensive weapons, destroying ships with each salvo. The battle was brutal and desperate. Ships sacrificing themselves to get closer, to do more damage, to buy more time. Kelthric's scout ship hung back, recording everything. He saw a human destroyer ram the platform at full speed, its crew transmitting defiant songs even as they died. He saw a Confederation cruiser position itself to shield a damaged human vessel from enemy fire, taking a blast meant for their former enemies. He saw cooperation born from necessity becoming something more, something like respect. Then human engineers found it. A vulnerability in the charging sequence. A moment when the shields redirected power to the main weapon, leaving a small section exposed for exactly 7 seconds. It was not much, but it was enough. All ships concentrate fire on coordinates Delta 97, Voss ordered. When those shields flicker, hit that point with everything we have. They waited for the moment, ships holding fire while the weapon charged, the energy readings climbing toward critical. Earth hung silent below them, billions of people unaware of how close they were to extinction. Then the shields flickered, power redirecting for 7 precious seconds. Every ship fired at once. The combined firepower of nearly 500 vessels, every weapon, every missile, every desperate ounce of fury and determination converged on a single point. The Doomsday device's armor buckled, then failed. The beam punched through into the main reactor chamber. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. The Doomsday device tore itself apart in a cascade of nuclear detonations, the weapon's own power consumption turning it into a temporary star. Ships close to the blast were destroyed instantly. Others were damaged by the shockwave. But when the glare faded and sensors cleared, the weapon was gone. Earth was safe. The cheering on Voss's bridge was mixed with sobbing. 117 ships had been destroyed in the battle. Thousands dead, both human and alien, who had given their lives to defend a world many of them had never visited. But Earth survived. Humanity survived. 2 weeks later, the Confederation Council formally apologized and requested negotiations. The rogue faction that had deployed the Doomsday device was arrested and tried. Matriarch Selene spoke before the assembled species, acknowledging their errors, accepting humanity as equals, proposing a new alliance built on partnership rather than hierarchy. The Terran Alliance formed with 47 member species at the signing ceremony on Earth. Human and alien diplomats stood together, writing new rules for galactic civilization. Rules that respected sovereignty, that protected younger species, that made genocide unthinkable. Kelthric became Earth's first alien ambassador, a position he accepted with pride. He watched human children play with Confederation children in the parks of New Terra, saw former enemies sharing technology and culture, witnessed the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history. True cooperation between equals. Commander Voss stood at the memorial built in Earth orbit, looking at the names of those who died defending humanity's home. Human and alien names side by side, forever remembered as those who chose courage over fear. She placed her hand on the memorial wall and whispered a promise to the dead. They would build a better galaxy, one where such sacrifices would never be needed again. The Confederation learned that day what Observer Kelthric had tried to tell them from the beginning. Humanity was not a threat to be contained. They were partners to be welcomed. Teachers of forgotten lessons about resilience and determination. Reminders that strength meant nothing without compassion, that power required responsibility. The galaxy had watched in silence as humanity descended from Earth, reaching for the stars with hope and determination. Now the galaxy watched in wonder as humanity built something new, an alliance not of dominance but of mutual respect, a future where all species could thrive together. The age of Confederation supremacy had ended. The age of true galactic cooperation had begun, and at the heart of it all was a species that had refused to kneel, refused to surrender, and ultimately taught the galaxy what it truly meant to be strong. Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful, a reminder of where humanity came from. But around it now orbited ships from a dozen worlds, protecting it not as a possession, but as a symbol, the birthplace of the species that changed the galaxy, the world that taught the stars a new way forward. And they would never be silent again.